See, what did I tell ya? Summoner Wars. Okay, so, Plaid Hat, they sent me the Ashes stuff for review, which I'm going to go over, but this is a bit more urgent because this just rolled out. This is the Summoner Wars 2.0 Master Set. They call it the second edition Master Set, but it's basically a reboot of the game. This sadly means that if you have the old Summoner Wars cards, they are not compatible with the new system, although that's not necessarily a bad thing. This new game is still just $50, includes 6 fully playable decks. Unfortunately, because it has to use a board, it can only support 2 players simultaneously. But anyway, a quick breakdown of what Summoner Wars is. Summoner Wars is a game that originally came out in 2009, and it is a game, it's a tactical card game where you have a deck of cards that you move around on a field. You'll get a look at that. Actually, let's see, maybe I can do, yeah, there we go. There we go. That gives us what we need. So it's a tactical card game where you have a deck of cards that you draw from, and then you place the units on the field and they can move around and fight each other. And the goal is to defeat your opponent's summoner. It is an expandable card game. The original one that came out in 2009, what happened was every tribe comes in a faction. And the thing about the factions is that they have unique card backs. For example, there's the background for Vanguards, and here is the one for Jungle Elves. So they have unique card backs. So if you want to build a deck, they all have to be the same faction. It certainly works thematically, as it means that it's you know, single tribes. Although I have talked in the past about mixable attributes, but we'll get a bit more into that later. They did later attempt to introduce the ability to mix the factions together with the Alliances Master Set, which I've shown off on this channel a few times. What they did was they basically created hybrid factions that could either build a deck with the hybrid cards and both factions that they make up, or they can be included. The hybrid cards can be included in the monotype decks. Of course, those hybrid cards had their own card backs, which created their own headache. But Summoner Wars 2.0 basically goes back to brass tacks. There are single faction decks again, but there are also a ton of quality of life improvements. I'll get to show you a few of those as we go on. The largest one is, the rules are essentially exactly the same. You still have the board, the summoner, the goals are the same. Let's get him out here. We have a nice big folding board reminiscent of the one from the original Master Set. So you have everything here. It folds out in a big old board. I do wish they'd push the box a bit more. The box is one of those ones with the generic flaps that I'm not really a fan of. The thing is, because of this hard board, it means I cannot use the insert that I have set up for Ashes, where it's like the alternative inserts I was talking about on the episode, because this board just takes up so much space. So I guess either we need to push for another proper master set. My Alliances Master Set is like a 3-row card box with neoprene mats, and I imagine even though we have this cardboard board for the game here, because this is a board game, I imagine it's not long before we get like paper or like neoprene mats that can do the same thing. It wouldn't surprise me if those already existed. But anyway, it's basically the same game. It's still the same, you know, rules: summon, move, build, attack, magic, and draw. Although you draw at the end of your turn rather than at the start of your turn. That basically allows you to refill your hand before your opponent goes, so you can know what you have and make some plans accordingly. Because I guess it doesn't really matter either way, when you get the cards you know you're going to have, it doesn't really affect your plans that much. There's not really much you can do on your opponent's turn. One of the biggest quality of life changes is the magic track here. Now, in the original Summoner Wars, you pay for costs by, at the end of your turn, dumping cards from your hand into a magic zone. The thing about adding cards to the magic zone is any creatures that get defeated get added to their opponent's magic zone. So you defeat one of your opponent's creatures, that creature card gets added to your magic zone, and that's kind of yucky, you know? It means that your nice cards might might fall into the hands of Captain Cheeto Breath across the table, and that's not really a fun idea at all. by converting it to a magic tracker, they can instead make it so that the cards just go to their owner's discard pile and you just move the tracker. That's a quality of life improvement that they went for there. Another one is like, did I pull him out? Yeah, there he is. Okay, so another one is the card layout has gotten some changes. It's a lot easier to read. Rather than having dots for health, it instead just straight up says 10. The attack value has the attack symbol in it, so you know that it's the attack value. Let me get out I actually have the Abuashi, the original Abuashi deck here. Okay, so here's the old cards over here. Here's the new one. These are both Abuashi. This is Abuashi, Summoner of the Jungle Elves, and this has been converted to Savannah Elves over here, which, considering the designs of the original Jungle Elves, you know, woof. Although, the art style in general has received a pretty big makeover, going from, like, unfinished Dungeons & Dragons or Magic the Gathering artwork into, like, the concept art for a Netflix original. No comment. I think they were trying to lean into that cartoonier edge because you have Ashes if you want a game that has all, like, that nice, like, really, like, super polished, like, Magic the Gathering-esque artwork. But we can see a ton of changes here. Like, if I asked you to tell me what that number meant up in the top corner here, you'd be a bit confused. You'd probably estimate that this is this guy's cost to enter play. The thing is, this guy is the summoner. He doesn't have any cost. You'd have a hard time telling me what these pips are for. This you might be able to explain to me. This probably not. So the original layout for the Summoner Wars cards is a bit of a mess. It's a bit less unintuitive. They decided to make them a bit easier to understand on this side over here. So, for example, this is actually Abuashi's attack value. It's a bit hard to tell from here. I mean, this is supposed to be attached to it as the attack value. Here, they have the value and the attack type in here. The attack type is, it tells you how a character can attack. Originally, it used, like, old D6 style dice. Now it actually uses custom dice, which are designed to actually make the melee characters a bit more accurate. Originally, in the original Summoner Wars, you rolled regular old 6-sided dice, and you hit on a 3 or better. In this game, you essentially, for a ranged character hits on a 3 or better, a melee character hits on a 2 or better, as there is only one side on this dice that does not have the sword on it. The other ones have a sword, like that one has a sword, 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 that one has a sword. So, by including the attack icon in the value over here, that tells me, hey, this guy has 5 dice. And now for attack rolls, you roll that number of dice to attack with. The other one here is these pips are actually this character's health. Another thing they've done is they have drastically increased the health of the summoners. You can see Abuashi has nearly double the health of the original, although he's actually pretty low in this set. I think he actually has the lowest health in this set. They're averaging between like 10 to 12. But having it as pips over here is a bit unusual. You'd almost think this is like currency he has to spend or something. By just having, 10 hearts, everybody who's played like any kind of game understands that heart means life points. Like anybody who's played like a Legend of Zelda game or any of those kinds of things gets that that's what that means. Of course, they include the counters to allow you to track that. That's the wound counters here. Now, the biggest change, however, is up here. Remember how I talked about you could not mix the tribes together because they have a unique card back? Well, in this game, the card backs are all universal. Like if I take the Sarah Eldwin deck, it's universal now, because what they've done is each summoner, rather than just having a tribe, now has some little symbols up here. They're a bit difficult to tell. It means you can use any card that matches these symbols. So they've basically gone from the ground up. They've wiped away the alliances system and replaced it with a system where each summoner basically has an affinity that you can match for deck building. There are some new deck building limitations. You cannot have 10 of common units. You can now only have up to 4 unless that card is on the starting spread. Oh yes, every summoner has a starting spread. These are cards that are required to be included in their final deck. They don't count against the limits otherwise. Setup is also a lot less complicated. They actually put the setup on the back of the summoner card in this case. The summoner card has the regular card back in the original, and a somewhat more complicated setup here. This one makes use of like artwork and things like that. It also has the required list. Abuashi has an entire list of special chants he has to put in his deck. This Abuashi only has to put in Chant of Power. He can then freely change around the other chants as much as he wants. So a huge benefit to deck building on these. Another thing is that otherwise the decks are pretty much identical. There are a lot of callbacks to the original. For example, we have Meaty Mumway is virtually unchanged. He has 7 health in the original. He has 11 health in the new one. They both have the trample ability, which means they can plow through enemy spaces and deal damage. And this guy, he's got a lot of health, so you want to send him around there. The original one only had a cost of 3. This one has a cost of 8, although he has a lot more health and does a lot more damage. He gets +1 strength for each boost he has. So, oh, that's attack 3. They both cost 8. I made the mistake. You saw that just now. I mistook his attack for his casting cost. So the abilities are basically identical. Meaty Mumway is the same as he was in the original game. Makendaru, I think, is different. When attacking with Makendaru, add 2 to her attack value if she was not moved this turn. So here's the other big change is rather than effects like this, which have like just random modifiers around, instead you have a system called boost. And what happens is certain things will allow you to boost a unit, and then those units typically have some kind of card text that refers to what they benefit from in that boost. Like Meaty Mumway down here, he gets +1 strength for each boost counter on him. Makinda can, instead of moving, put a boost counter on herself. So it's similar to this. It's spiritually similar to this ability here, but instead what happens is she can then spend that boost to attack twice. So, and attacking twice with a character does not count against your attack limit. What happens is on your turn, you can play as many units as you can afford. You can then move 3 units and attack with 3 units. If a unit attacks multiple times, that does not count against your attack score. So her being able to attack multiple times, even though her attack is just 2, that gives her a chance to double up on the damage, and you can just spend one of your moves for the turn to instead give her a boost. So a lot of these cards are really similar to how they were. Like I said, they've simplified it by converting the random modifiers into boost. A huge part of this is accessibility. Like another big one, the wall cards in the original game serve the purpose of being where you summon creatures from. It's like if you pick up a game and you're like, hey, where do you think you summon characters from? It's like, oh, they come from my summoner, right? And there's like, no, they come from the walls. And then they'll be asking like, hey, how does that make any sense at all? So those walls have been replaced by gates. They are gameplay-wise, functionally, completely identical to walls. However, they now make more sense from like a summoner standpoint. So like I said, it's all just ease of access. Another one is the original game used bridge size cards. The new ones are poker sized, so you can actually put them into conventional sleeves now. A lot of like I said, just general quality of life improvements, things that people who enjoy these kinds of games will like. Like I said, I imagine it's only a matter of time before we get access to like paper and the neoprene playmats. Hopefully, I kind of hoped they'd put out a box for the game similar to the one they put out for like Vampire Rivals or something, where it actually acts as like proper card storage, has a better fitting for the mat. We'll see if they come out with that. This is, I guess, supposed to be a lower price option. It does come with 6 complete decks, so you will definitely be fun for a while. If you have your old Summoner Wars mats, they are the same, basically. You just need to include a way to track your magic counter. You could do that with like D10s or something like that rather than the old way, and you can use your old mats for the game. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Summoner Wars is back, baby. If you liked the original, I'm sure you will like this. So yeah, that is a look at the new Summoner Wars 2.0 Master Set, and until next time, this is Kohdok signing off.